How's it going, everyone? This is Mike. Welcome back to my channel. Cheers. Hope you have a nice evening. And the two things I want to do in this video. The first is to show you the 12 Blu-rays that I got last week from Twilight Time Video, which, as I'm sure a lot of you already know, is going out of business. And they've been having this massive going out of business sale. So a lot of these things... there was quite a delay in getting these things, and I think a lot of people are experiencing the same problem. But I was very patient because I knew that they would probably be overwhelmed. I'm very sad to hear that this company is going out of business because they put out a quality product, so I will miss them terribly. So after that, I'm going to address one of the community chat topics that's going around. So I'm just going to show these films very quickly. Some I've watched, some I have not. Some I saw before years ago and all that. But I haven't done a movie log video in quite a while, so once I get all of these watched, I will probably just talk about them in more detail. Just let me show you very quickly. Here's The Big Fix from 1978, Richard Dreyfuss and Susan Ansbach. Very cool movie. I had seen that before back in the show. And here's a movie. Here's a movie I've never seen. Still, You'll Never Get Rich, starring Fred Astaire and Rita Hayworth. The first of two collaborations between those great stars. Here's a film I haven't seen in years, Beneath the 12-Mile Reef, starring Robert Wagner, Terry Moore, Gilbert Roland, and Richard Boone. And there used to be a lot of very bad VHS copies of this floating around, so I'm glad that it's finally been remastered. Here's a movie I just saw for the first time a couple of nights ago, Dragonwyck, starring Gene Tierney and Vincent Price, sort of a gothic mystery soap opera from 1946. Very beautiful cinematography. And here's the movie that I own on a DVD. It's the only one that I had in my collection. This is I Could Go On Singing, starring Judy Garland and Dirk Bogarde from 1963. Judy Garland's last film. Great dramatic performance and also some great musical performances from her. So very much worth having. I wanted to buy this because it has two different audio commentaries, so that'll be fun. Here's a movie from 1962 called The L-Shaped Room, starring Leslie Caron. And I had never seen this before. This is an English film, and it's very, very dramatic and very beautiful. This is another film I had never seen before, Anastasia, 1956, the comeback film, the American comeback film for Ingrid Bergman after years of being ostracized for her relationship with Roberto Rossellini. But she came back and won an Academy Award for this fantastic film, fantastic portrayal of a woman who may or may not be the last surviving daughter of the Russian Tsar, who of course was executed in the Russian Revolution with all of his family. But one child was said to have possibly escaped, and it may be this woman. Very good story. Here's a movie called The Snake Pit from 1948, starring Olivia de Havilland. Very dramatic story, very raw imagery of a woman who's going through a mental breakdown and is in a mental hospital, and it shows a lot of the treatment that she has to have and her relapses, and it's a very, very good movie, very atmospheric. Here's a terrific musical from 20th Century Fox, The Gang's All Here, 1943. Alice Faye, Carmen Miranda, and beautiful color, directed by Busby Berkeley, who's famous for making films like this with all the geometric patterns of dancing girls and all this stuff. Really a cool movie. All right. Here's a movie I'd never seen before. Gary Cooper in 10 North Frederick, 1958. Definitely a soap opera, also starring Diane Varsi and Geraldine Fitzgerald. Interesting movie, not that great, but definitely interesting in the fact that it was a latter-day performance by Gary Cooper, not that long before he passed away. Here's a movie from the 1960s that I had never seen before. I think I had seen one small part of it about the end of the film. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. Natalie Wood, Robert Culp, Diane Cannon, Elliot Gould, directed by Paul Mazursky. 1969, the height of the youth culture revolution, sexual revolution, all that nonsense, and about two married couples who decide to get close. Let's put it that way. A lot of fun. I'm glad I finally got to see this. There were some very good things in it. It's fun seeing all the clothes and the decor and hearing all that jargon that people had back then. And yeah, pretty cool. And finally, here's a movie I still have never seen, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau in The Fortune Cookie. So I'm looking forward to seeing this. Heard a lot of really terrific things about this. So, The Fortune Cookie. All right. Now, the second thing I want to do is talk about one of the community chat topics for film lovers, DVD collectors, that's going around. And my friends in the Grumpy Old Gentleman on Film group, they come up with chat topics. I think it's almost every 10 minutes now, and I'm way behind. I'm never going to catch up. So this is one that I found interesting, and I want to join in. And this was introduced by my friend James Higgins, DVD collector, 1974, and it has to do with perfect movies, perfect films. Do we know of any films in our collections or films that we've seen that we consider to be perfect? And I guess related questions would be, do films have to be perfect in order for us to appreciate them, and all that sort of thing? So let me talk about this. There are some films that I love that I even made a list. I could probably make a very long list, but this is just some of them. Films that, in my opinion, they are so good I would not change a single thing. That to me is a perfect film. I would not change a single moment in that movie. So I came up with a list. 2 films by Roman Polanski, Chinatown and Rosemary's Baby. 3 films by Woody Allen. 1 for comedy is Annie Hall, perfect movie. And then 2 of his dramatic films. 1 is Crimes and Misdemeanors, and 1 is Match Point. I would not change a single thing. And some other movies that I would go from earlier years. The Letter, starring Bette Davis in 1940. I absolutely love that movie. The Best Years of Our Lives from 1946. Days of Heaven from 1977. Frankenstein. I think this is a film that James also mentioned. The original Frankenstein, directed by James Whale. That is an amazingly, just an amazingly well-made, beautiful to look at film. And I don't think I would change a single moment about the way it looked, or about the way the performances were, about the way the monster acted. Nothing. It's a great, great film. And finally, I would disagree with James on this one. The film Casablanca. I think that is another film that, wow, every scene, every performance, every line, every shot, I wouldn't change anything. So I really love that movie a lot. But now I want to say that a film doesn't have to be absolutely perfect in order for me to love it and have reverence for it. For example, my #1 film of all time is The Night of the Hunter, 1955, the Charles Laughton film. And I think it's always going to be my #1 film, at least for the foreseeable future. But I don't think it's perfect. There are some things in that film that I would change. And one of them is I would not have done what Charles Laughton did with the character played by Robert Mitchum, Harry Powell, Preacher Harry Powell, who was a maniac, a psychotic killer who hated women. And Charles Laughton was so afraid that this character was going to come off as being so unforgivably evil that it might damage Robert Mitchum's career and therefore his life. So he actually softened the character a little bit. There are a couple of scenes where he's chasing the children out of a basement where he's sort of, it looks like it's almost comedic. And the character, the evil nature of the character was just kind of made to be funny in those moments. I think that's a big mistake. I think that he should have just kept that momentum of evil and terror. But of course, it came back later in the film. Another thing I would change in The Night of the Hunter, I'm not that crazy about the performance of Shelley Winters, at least not in every scene. There's a scene where after she's been married to Harry Powell and she's gotten very religious, and there's a tent meeting, a gospel tent meeting, where she's preaching to a crowd, and it comes off as a parody of someone preaching to a crowd. I don't think that she did it very well. There was just too much emotion, too much expression, and I always kind of cringe when I see that movie, because I think everything else she does in the movie is very good. When I see that scene, I cringe when I see it, because everything else that she does in the movie is quite good. But I think that Charles Laughton probably should have said, "Cut, let's do it again," but he didn't. But that does not change my opinion of the movie because it is still a fantastic film. Another film that I love, my number 2 film in life is Black Sunday, the Mario Bava horror classic. Now, I love the film, but I do think that it has flaws, and I think that they become more evident the more times I see it, the more times that I watch it. And one flaw is basically it doesn't make any kind of sense. Of course, in a horror film, not everything is supposed to be logical, but there has to be some sort of believability. It doesn't make any sense to me that evil Princess Ozza, who has been resurrected by just a few drops of blood and is lying on a slab and she's slowly regenerating and she's got this mental power, she can't get off the slab by herself. But she manages to resurrect her cohort Yavutich, and he does it without any drops of blood. He just gets right out of the coffin. So she can do all these things to all these people, but she can't get up off the slab. It just doesn't really make any sense. And the other there are some moments in Black Sunday that, again, they sort of add a little bit of comedic. Some of the minor characters, like the coach driver, comes off with a very kind of a Three Stooges type performance that I think is inappropriate. And so yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to think of what else. James mentioned Citizen Kane. How could I forget Citizen Kane? Which I suppose is really a perfect movie. I've never really thought of it that way, but again, it's a movie that I've always revered. I've always sort of stand apart from it in reverential awe, even before I finally got around to really enjoying it as a film, as a story, as a collection of great performances, which finally happened for me a couple years ago when I was taking an Orson Welles film class, and we watched Citizen Kane, and it was the first time that I totally connected with the movie in a very personal way. So before that, I just sort of thought, well, of course it's a classic. Everybody else has called it a classic, so I have to do that as well. But now I actually love it, so my opinion changed. But I've talked about that before. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about any of the films that I talked about, or any of my comments about perfect films, and join in with us with the chat topic if you like. Take care.